It was a very difficult time, and we are a family, and we will always be a family, and we will get through this time and hopefully be a stronger family for it.
Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt built one of the most photographed families in Hollywood. 6 kids who grew up on red carpets, in war zones with their mother, and eventually far from the cameras entirely. Now that the youngest of the 6 has just turned 18, all of them are legal adults. And for the first time, they're free to define themselves however they choose. So where are Maddox, Pax, Zahara, Shiloh, Knox, and Vivienne now? And what really happened to this once picture-perfect family? Let's find out together. Maddox and Zahara, from adoption stories to independent adults. Maddox Chivan was the first child to join the family, adopted from an orphanage in Cambodia back in 2002, when Angelina Jolie was still a single mother working as a UNHCR Goodwill ambassador. He grew up traveling the world with his mother long before Brad Pitt entered the picture, and that early exposure to his birth country never left him. Now, 24, Maddox has become deeply invested in his Cambodian heritage. He served as an executive producer on a documentary exploring the history of the country he was born in, a project that let him reconnect with his roots in a way few adoptees get the chance to. According to Hollywood Life, Maddox was born on August 5, 2001, making him the eldest of the 6 siblings. Long before Brad Pitt entered the picture, Maddox spent his early years accompanying his mother on humanitarian trips as she carried out her duties as a UNHCR Goodwill ambassador. And that upbringing gave him a front-row seat to global issues most kids his age never encountered. In April 2023, Maddox joined his mother at a state dinner hosted at the White House, a moment that showed just how far their bond had carried him into adulthood, and one of the few times he appeared publicly alongside her in a formal political setting. He currently studies biochemistry at Yonsei University in South Korea, where he enrolled back in 2019, and where he has also been learning Korean, and he recently earned his pilot's license, following the same passion for flying that his mother has spoken about publicly for years. Jolie once told Entertainment Tonight that she was proud of how Maddox had grown into a balanced young man, smart and hardworking, but still willing to embrace a bit of wildness in his teenage years, a description that seems to track with the adventurous, multi-continent life he's built for himself since. Maddox worked as an assistant director on his mother's 2026 film Couture, and in the credits, he appeared under the name Maddox Jolie, having quietly dropped his father's surname from his professional work well before making it official through the courts. That decision, paired with his relocation to South Korea for university, suggests a young man who has intentionally built a life and an identity largely independent of the Pitt name and the Hollywood machine that once defined his childhood. Zahara Marley followed in 2005, adopted from an orphanage in Hawassa, Ethiopia, after a trip that Maddox himself had encouraged his mother to take. Now 21, Zahara has built a college life that feels worlds away from tabloid headlines. She enrolled at Spelman College in Atlanta in 2022, and by her sophomore year she had joined the Mupai chapter of Alpha Kappa. Alpha, the first historically black sorority in the country, alongside sisters like Rosa Parks and Toni Morrison before her. During her induction ceremony, Zahara introduced herself using only her mother's surname, skipping her father's name entirely, a moment that instantly drew attention online. Fellow members of Alpha Kappa Alpha have included cultural figures like Vice President Kamala Harris, filmmaker Ava DuVernay, and the late civil rights icon Rosa Parks. And Zahara's own induction ceremony carried the same energy, with her mother and brothers Pax and Maddox reportedly on hand to celebrate the milestone. She has continued to build her own public voice since then, even serving as a keynote speaker at a brunch in Montgomery, Alabama, focused on raising awareness around period poverty, according to AOL. Angelina Jolie herself has spoken emotionally about dropping her daughter off at Spelman, telling university staff on camera that the moment nearly brought her to tears. Between sorority life, dance videos with her sisters, and a relationship with actor Elijah Cooper, Zahara has carved out a version of adulthood that centers her own interests rather than her family's public image. In June 2025, the couple was spotted enjoying a summer break date at Disneyland, riding attractions and wandering through Galaxy's Edge like any other young couple. A quiet, normal moment that stood in stark contrast to the very public childhood Zahara once had. According to Essence, Zahara has continued to embrace her sorority's traditions well into her college years, showing up for step and stroll performances alongside her sisters, even as she balances her studies and advocacy work. Just when fans thought they had the full picture of this family's story, new details emerged that changed everything. What really pushed these 6 siblings toward the choices they've made? The answer might be more heartbreaking than anyone expected. Shiloh and Pax, rebuilding identity after a difficult childhood. Shiloh Nouvelle, born in 2006, was the first biological child Jolie and Pitt welcomed together, and her birth in Namibia turned into a global media event at the time. Now 20, Shiloh has spent the last several years quietly stepping away from the spotlight her parents once thrived in, choosing instead to pour herself into dance. She trained for years at the Millennium Dance Complex in Los Angeles, one of the most respected commercial dance studios in the country, and in April 2026, she appeared in a music video for South Korean pop artist Dayoung, according to Hello magazine. On her 18th birthday in May 2024, Shiloh filed to legally drop her father's surname, and the petition was approved that August without objection, making her the first of the 6 siblings to make the split official and public. Growing up, Shiloh was often the subject of media speculation about her gender expression, having preferred short hair and boyish clothing for much of her childhood. As an adult, she has largely stepped back from commenting on that chapter of her life publicly, choosing instead to let her dancing speak for her. She now goes simply by Shiloh Jolie in professional credits and public appearances, a clean break from the surname that once defined her childhood in headlines. Her decision to file for the name change on the exact day she turned 18 has often been read as a signal of just how ready she was to make the break. And the fact that the petition passed through the courts without any objection that August suggests there was little resistance to the change once it reached a judge. Since then, Shiloh has continued building her dance career quietly, choosing artistic collaborations over interviews and letting her movement do most of the talking. Pax Thien was adopted from Vietnam in 2007, arriving into the family as its 3rd child and quickly earning a reputation, in his mother's own words at the time, as tough and fiercely independent. Now 22, Pax has spent much of his adult life working behind the camera rather than in front of it, taking on roles as an assistant director and developing an interest in photography and filmmaking that has largely kept him out of the public eye. In 2024, Pax Jolie-Pitt faced one of the most difficult periods of his life after suffering a serious e-bike accident in Los Angeles. The crash left him with significant injuries that required emergency medical attention, a stay in intensive care, and months of rehabilitation. According to Netflix Junkie, the recovery process involved extensive physical therapy as doctors worked to help him regain his strength and mobility. Although the accident initially raised concerns about his long-term health, those close to him later said that he made consistent progress through determination and patience. Rather than retreating from the creative world, Pax gradually returned to work behind the scenes in the film industry, continuing to assist on productions while also pursuing his growing passion for photography. His interest in visual storytelling has increasingly shifted away from acting and toward life behind the camera, allowing him to develop his own artistic identity outside the spotlight that has surrounded his family for decades. Even as several of his siblings have taken steps to distance themselves publicly from the Pitt surname, Pax has chosen a different path. As of mid-2026, he remains the only one of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's 6 children who still legally retains his father's last name in full. Unlike Zahara, Vivienne, and Shiloh, who have publicly used or legally adopted the Jolie surname, Pax has never commented on why he has kept Pitt as part of his legal name. Whether the decision reflects a more private approach to family matters, a different relationship with his father, or simply a desire to avoid making a public statement, he has left the question unanswered, fueling occasional media speculation without offering clarification. Like his siblings, however, Pax's life was profoundly shaped by the family's highly publicized split. He was among the children aboard the September 2016 private flight from France to Los Angeles, during which an argument erupted between Brad Pitt and then 15-year-old Maddox. The incident prompted investigations by both the FBI and the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services. After reviewing the available evidence, both agencies closed their investigations without filing criminal charges against Pitt. Nevertheless, the confrontation became a turning point in the family's history, ultimately preceding Jolie's divorce filing and the years of custody disputes that followed. Just when it seemed like the family drama had settled, a new and heartbreaking chapter came to light. What really happened behind closed doors, and how has it shaped who these siblings have become? Stay with us, because it only gets more surprising from here. Knox and Vivienne, the twins charting their own paths. Born in July 2008, twins Knox Leon and Vivienne Marceline were the youngest additions to the family and the last children Jolie and Pitt welcomed together before their marriage began to unravel. Now both 18, the twins have spent the past 2 years quietly stepping into adulthood on their own terms. Knox recently graduated from Fusion Academy in Los Angeles, a school known for its highly individualized, one-on-one teaching model, walking at his graduation ceremony under the name Knox Jolie. Away from academics, he has developed a serious interest in martial arts, training and competing as a Muay Thai fighter, a discipline that demands the kind of privacy and focus that stands in sharp contrast to the public childhood he had. He was recently spotted training in Los Angeles, wearing a t-shirt featuring Muhammad Ali paired with running shoes and athletic shorts, a detail that only reinforced the sense that Knox is building an identity rooted in discipline and physical training rather than the entertainment world his parents made famous. Vivienne, his twin sister, has taken a different but equally independent path. She first stepped into the industry professionally as a production assistant on the 2024 Broadway musical The Outsiders, a production her mother helped bring to the stage, and she was credited in the program simply as Vivienne Jolie. Just days after turning 18 on July 12, 2026, Vivienne filed a legal petition to become Vivienne Marceline Jolie, dropping her father's surname entirely, according to Thought Catalog. Her filing made her the fifth of the 6 siblings to take that step, following Shiloh, Zahara, and Maddox, who filed his own petition earlier in 2026, with Zahara's own hearing on the matter scheduled for September. That leaves Pax as the sole holdout among the 6, still carrying the Pitt name, even as nearly all of his siblings have chosen to move forward without it. Back in July 2008, the arrival of Knox and Vivienne was treated as a full-blown media event in its own right, with magazines around the world reportedly paying record sums for the first photographs of the newborn twins. Nearly 2 decades later, both twins have grown into adults who seem far more interested in building quiet, self-directed careers than in revisiting that early spotlight. Right when everyone thought this story couldn't get any more complicated, a devastating twist changed the entire narrative. What does this really mean for the family's future? You'll want to see how this unfolds. A family divided, custody battles, and what comes next. The path that led 5 of the 6 Jolie-Pitt children to drop their father's surname traces directly back to that 2016 flight and the years of legal conflict that followed. Angelina Jolie filed for divorce from Brad Pitt just days after the incident, citing irreconcilable differences and requesting sole physical custody of all 6 children at the time, ending what had been a 12-year relationship and a 2-year marriage between 2 of the biggest names in Hollywood. What followed was one of the most drawn-out custody battles in modern Hollywood history. A private judge initially granted Pitt joint custody in 2021, only for Jolie to successfully have that ruling overturned in 2022, after she argued the judge had undisclosed business ties to Pitt's legal team. The two also remained locked in a separate legal fight over Miraval, the French winery they once owned together, a dispute that dragged on for years and added another layer of tension to an already strained family dynamic, with countersuits and financial claims flying between their respective legal teams well into the following years. Their divorce was finally finalized in December 2024, closing out a legal saga that stretched back more than 8 years, according to AOL. Yet even with the paperwork settled, the emotional distance between Pitt and his children has reportedly remained wide. Sources close to the family have described his relationship with his adult children as virtually non-existent in recent years, with visitation limited mostly to the younger siblings under their custody agreement. Part of what fueled that distance traces back to allegations Jolie raised in a court filing, in which she claimed Pitt had choked one of their children and struck another during that same 2016 flight, with several of the children reportedly pleading with him to stop. Pitt has denied wrongdoing throughout the legal process, and no criminal charges were ever filed against him following the investigations that followed, though the allegations themselves have continued to shape public perception of the family and the reasons behind the children's collective distancing from him. Jolie, meanwhile, has spoken about her children as the anchor that carried her through the hardest years of her life. In past interviews, she has described how becoming a mother changed her completely, and how her kids gave her a reason to keep pushing forward during the most difficult chapters of the divorce and custody fight. One of her children has even used her New York City apartment as a home base while building an independent adult life, evidence of how closely knit the siblings and their mother have remained, even as they've scattered across colleges, careers, and countries, a detail Jolie shared candidly in a 2025 interview with the New York Times. More recently, Jolie has hinted that she feels a renewed sense of strength heading into this next chapter of her life, telling Variety in mid-2026 that her fighting spirit had finally returned after years of legal battles and family upheaval. That renewed energy seems to mirror what's happening with her children, as each of them steps further into adulthood on terms they've largely defined for themselves. As for what comes next, the siblings appear to be charting paths defined far more by their own ambitions than by their famous last name, or lack of one. Maddox is pursuing science and aviation in South Korea. Zahara is building a life rooted in sisterhood and advocacy in Atlanta. Shiloh has found her calling in dance. Pax is quietly working his way through the film industry behind the scenes. And the twins, Knox and Vivienne, are only just beginning to step into the world as legal adults, one through martial arts discipline and the other through theater production. What stands out most, looking at all 6 of their journeys side by side, is how differently each of them has chosen to process the same childhood. Some have leaned into their heritage, like Maddox reconnecting with Cambodia through film. Some have leaned into community, like Zahara finding sisterhood at an historically black college. Others have simply leaned into discipline and craft, like Knox in the ring or Shiloh on the dance floor. None of it looks like the path their parents took, and that may be exactly the point. For Angelina Jolie, watching her children step into these separate lives seems to represent a kind of quiet victory after everything the family has been through. She has continued her own career as an actor, director, and humanitarian in the years since the divorce, all while remaining the primary constant in her children's lives as they've scattered from Atlanta to Seoul to the stages of Broadway. For Brad Pitt, the picture looks far more distant. A father largely on the outside of the adult lives his children are now building for themselves, watching from a distance as the family name he once shared with all 6 of them slips away, one legal filing at a time. 6 kids who once knew each other only as a famous blended family photographed at premieres now look more like 6 individuals writing their own separate stories, each shaped by the same complicated childhood, but moving in entirely different directions. Whether that distance from their father ever narrows again remains an open question, But for now, all 6 seem far more focused on building their own futures than on revisiting the past. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.